Hello and welcome. I'm very excited to be joined by Linda Seward. She is the most extraordinary quilter and author of 13 books. Now, during the pandemic, her artwork took a slightly different direction. We'll hear more about that in a few minutes' time. Linda, so lovely to meet you. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Fantastic. So let's hear a little bit about your background then. So when did you start quilting?
Well, I think it goes back a bit further than that. I began doing embroidery, knitting and crochet from the age of about 5. My mother and grandmothers taught me, so I'm from a long line of needlewomen. And I continued with all of my sewing, and I learned how to make my own clothes at 10 and was making suits and coats by the time I got to university. And in addition to a degree in anthropology, I got a degree in home economics, clothing, textiles, and design, which led me to New York City, where I got a scholarship to a fashion school. And the best part of that was my work experience in the summer, where they sent me to McCall's Needlework and Crafts magazine. Nobody else wanted that job. And I was just in heaven. I'd been taking the magazine myself for years. So they offered me a job there when I graduated, and I became a technical writer. So anything I didn't know how to do, they sent me out to learn. Stained glass, woodworking, doll making, you name it, I learned it. But there was an editor who did all the quilts, so I never got to do that. What happened is I then got a job with Dover Publications, and I became their needlework and crafts editor. And then I got to edit quilt books. I met all the most amazing quilters from all over the United States. I edited their books, and in so doing, of course, learned much more, and then began writing books myself because I saw where there were gaps in the market. And yeah, so it was a long journey, but it all seemed to lead to one place.
Yeah, you've had the most amazing life, reading up about you. And obviously you're from the States, you live in the UK now. Where do you prefer living then?
Oh, well, no, I love living here. And I met my husband 38 years ago, and he's British, and moved here, had no idea what it would be like, but I really love it now. I've got 3 children who are British citizens, and you know, my life is here.
Don't forget the dogs as well, the fur babies.
My two dogs, 2 border terriers, yeah.
Which feature a lot in your artwork, actually, in your quilting.
They do, and they feature in my life because I walk them every day and keeps me fit.
So let's go back to the pandemic, and it was such a dreadful time for so many people. But actually, during this time, people discovered that they had skills they never knew they had before and developed new skills and hobbies. What happened to you during this time?
Well, honestly, if you told me I'd be where I am today 3 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you because I didn't really know anything about nature. I walked in the countryside every weekend, but I never looked at anything. I was walking around with my eyes shut. And as a result of the pandemic, our local councillor was asking, I moved out to the countryside to Oxfordshire because I live in London, but we moved to our cottage. And we'd only ever spent weekends there, so I really didn't spend much time in the countryside. But taking my daily walk, I suddenly noticed nature, and I took my camera with me. Our local councillor said, people can't get out. If you've got anything you could share, send it to me and I'll forward it. So I started out with taking a picture of a flower. I didn't know what it was. It's a very common flower. I looked it up, I wrote about it, I sent it out, and people liked it. So I continued. I did one every day. Spring flowers turned to summer, turned to butterflies, bees, hoverflies, weeds, lichens, thistles, and birds. And then in the autumn of that year, I saw my first fungus in the woods. It was always there. I just never noticed it. And I just dropped to my knees, took a picture, got it home, put it on the computer, and I found out it was called an amethyst deceiver. I mean, with a name like that, you know, you have to fall in love, don't you? Anyway, every day after that, I began looking for fungi, and I couldn't believe my eyes. All these things. I mean, this is just a small example of what I found on my daily walks. And they're very hard to identify. You really need help. And I got help from local people. I joined a mycological society. I joined Facebook groups that helped me. And it just went on from there. And so from like November until the end of, I did 365 days of daily photos for this group, which grew to over 200. And at the end of that year, I just had this backlog of information of all kinds. And I don't know, it just sparked my love of fungi, which, you know, if it wasn't for the pandemic and the lockdown, I never would be where I am today.
So do you think you just had more time to appreciate the natural world during the pandemic? Is it as simple as that? It
was that, and it was also just opening my eye, because once you open your eyes, you see a lot more. You know, I never knew how many different hoverflies. I didn't even know what a hoverfly was. And now I can identify dozens. And the same with bees. I thought they were all the same. It's incredible what happens when you open your eyes, and also how many experts there are in all these fields and how willing they are to help you. I would write to these people. I was doing an article for a magazine on lichens. And so I picked some people off the internet and wrote to one of them. He runs the biology department of the University of Northern Ireland, and he's an expert lichenologist. And he helped me, and he corresponded with me. And I found that with every single, you know, group of species that I was studying.
You blog about the natural world, and you go on your website, some beautiful, beautiful photographs of nature that you've taken over the years. Through your passion and enthusiasm, are you hoping to educate other people?
That is exactly what I'm trying to do. And in fact, my local newspaper is the Henley Standard in Oxfordshire. And I've begun writing for them, well, since November. And I've written 18 major articles, and every week I also do a spread of photographs. So, and through that, people are writing to me, and they're like, I never knew the name of that. I never knew this. I never knew that. And they're getting into different things. I had a lovely man in his 80s who wrote to me and said, I never noticed hoverflies before. Can I come and meet you? And he did, and we had a lovely afternoon together. But yeah, my goal really is to educate and to get people to really open their eyes and see what is around them.
I'm going to take you full circle now, and I know that you don't necessarily keep sketchbooks when it comes to designing quilts, but you do take lots of photographs for references. So you're obviously a wordsmith, you're an artist, you're a photographer. How does this all translate when it comes to quilting?
Well, what happened is I'm a member of Contemporary Quilt, which is part of the Quilters Guild of the British Isles, and they had a challenge just after the pandemic, which is something like close to home. And so I thought, well, these mushrooms were growing in my garden. And so I made this quilt for that exhibition, and in so doing I found a company called the Silk Bureau who do these incredible fabric prints of my photographs. And they literally are, they're just fantastic. The color is amazing. And so I did that quilt, and then I did the one that's behind you, which was in Festival of Quilts last year. And now the new thing I'm doing is I've got this idea that I'm like making portraits of fungi and framing them in like this wood-looking fabric. And I'm going to sort of hang them on a fabric wall and make a couple of different quilts in that way. So it's really moved my quilting on in a totally different direction. I never really used my own pictures before. So it's just been fantastic.
What sort of feedback are you getting from people who love your work anyway, or perhaps never seen it before?
Well, I just want to say the feedback from mycologists is incredible, because I went to a conference 2 years ago in Milton Keynes, and they said, does anybody have anything any posters they wish to hang? And I said, oh, I've got a quilt I can hang.
Where was that, on your person, in your handbag?
No, they sent it by email.
Right.
And so I wrote and I said, I've got this quilt. And she said, that's not a scientific poster, but you can bring it and see if they'll hang it. I did, I hung it, and everybody was just surrounding it and loving it, and they just never saw anything like it before.
Yes, yeah. It is unique, isn't it?
So one way or another, I'm going to combine mycology and quilting.
It's fantastic. It's such a new idea, isn't it? And, you know, putting these amazing creations from the natural world centre stage, framed, it's mind-blowing.
I mean, they are so beautiful. I mean, look at the color of that.
Yeah.
And that's really what it looked like.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on a nature safari every single day when I go for a walk. I never know what I'm going to find. And I always find something.
So what do you think your next obsession is going to be after fungi?
Well, I do love hoverflies, so watch this space.
Okay. Linda, it's been lovely talking to you today. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for sharing your beautiful artwork with us.
You are welcome.
Thank you.